welcome back to the Don and Gino Real Estate and Finance Show right here in your hometown station, AM 1220 KHTS.
And remember, our goal is always to guide you to personal and financial wellness.
Well, I hope you're ready for another wonderful edition of the Don and Gino Show with Don Getling and Gino Fronte, where our efforts are always to guide you to personal financial wellness for the last 9 years, and we do it with the best professionals we can find across the nation, and we bring them back by popular demand because they're that good. And today we have one of our favorites.
That's right. Jim Reape here, who we brought onto America's Professional Group probably around 7 years ago.
Yeah.
To make sure that people had a really great resource for probably one of the most difficult things you could possibly go through in your life, which is a separation or a divorce, or hopefully you can avoid all that. Maybe go see him for a prenup.
So we have our favorite, one of our favorite professionals and our family law expert. We actually are the owner of Jim Reape, Reape Rickett law firm, and Jim Reape is in the house.
Well, thank you guys.
Pleasure,
Great to be back. Yeah,
you're like a real dude, and I can honestly say he's really good. He helped me out.
Yeah.
So thank you for joining us again.
Save money in the long run.
Oh yeah.
Actually, that was good. The difference, and for anybody that's looking about how do I run a business, how do I build a business, how do I keep a business running, it's sincerity and really trying to help people and doing the right things, and you did.
Thank you.
You would think that attorneys are, everybody's afraid of you. Think they call you sharks because you're just out to get money or chase things down, or all about you. And you were exact opposite. Your whole thing was, Don, let's help you not have to go to court. Let's help you not spend all your money. Let's help keep everybody unemotional, and let me guide you through the process and help you emotionally and financially through the entire process. It was amazing, and you accomplished all those goals.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
I mean, that's and it's legitimate.
Doesn't always work that way,
Sure.
but I'm happy because you were a good person to work with, because I would hear you, I would listen to you, and then you would listen to me. Most importantly, you would take the cues that I'd say that, Don, I can see something is bothering you, and I think if you share that either with your, now ex-wife, or publish it otherwise through social media or things like that, that it can create a ripple effect, a certain emotion on the other side that's going to do nothing to solve your problem, and if anything, just going to push the result further away, with a lot more opportunity for expense or litigation or some other reason that the case moves forward. In some of these cases where there's so much anger, sometimes, the attorneys, if you have good attorneys, they may get into real substantive settlement negotiations, take it back to their clients, and their clients can't handle it. That happens. So what then happens is there's going to be a scrimmage. There's going to be a battle, if not a war.
I like that word.
And sometimes the lawyers would say you can't settle the case until a certain amount of blood has been let. So the idea is, to know that that's the other direction that you're going to go. Very few cases make their way to trial, through an appeal. Some do, most don't. So it's just like, when are you going to get off this expense wagon? Okay, when are you going to get real about what it is that you want, realistic about closure, realistic about moving on? And it's great to have a client that listens and takes those cues. Fortunately, on the other side, we didn't have people going wild either, so that they got very engaged in it, particularly when our judge said, this is going to cost you money. So if you think the other person's going to pay for it, let me tell you, I'm your judge. It's not going to happen that way.
Yeah,
that was phenomenal, by the way.
And so I'm watching this ping pong match right from the outside, and emotion management seems to be a large portion of what you do.
Yes, right,
100%.
And sometimes it's in cooperation with the judge. So I had a settlement conference recently because we were headed towards a 2-week trial on a significant issue. It's whether or not these 3 young children and mother could leave the state. Okay, so it's going to have a significant impact on, dad's time with the kids, the relationship that he's going to have, when he's going to see him, how he's going to see him, how involved he's going to be. So it's a big deal. It's a big deal. The court looks at it at a big deal. So our judge agrees that, hey, I had a case that's settled. Do you guys want to come in for the day, and we'll talk, and we'll see what we can do to settle the case. So we did that, but it wasn't until after 4 o'clock, when it looked like it wasn't going to happen, that the judge takes us all in. She gets up on the bench and she says, okay, so we've got a 2-week trial that we're looking for. And she looks at these kids, because they were, mid-30s. And she said, do you know you're about to spend $300,000 more on this trial? Bye. Within days, the case settles.
Right. Yeah. No, so you look, I mean, that's the reality. I talked to a friend of mine the other day, and he's like a little frustrated with his situation and his divorce and how long it's taking. I go, oh, well, it doesn't seem like that long. How long has it been? He's like, oh, man, it's been like a year and a half. I'm like, dude, you're like in the 4th inning. There's ways to go. Like, it's so early.
2.5 years.
And I know you want to be done with it, like, now, right? Once you've decided I want to get divorced, it's like, how do I make it happen next week?
Well, it can cost you. So I was meeting with somebody today, and I'm encouraging her to go into mediation. So I won't be there, but she's not going to agree to anything without running it by me. But you still want to engage in something like that, take the opportunity, because the litigation route, I know exactly what that looks like. Mm-hmm. And it's incredibly expensive, and it's unfortunately unpredictable. If anybody tells you that this is what's going to happen, they're pretty brazen
in that.
You were very
clear on that, which I really appreciate. You're like, Don, I've been doing this a long time, but you never know. And it depends on the judge. And then when we got our judge, you're like, whew, we don't know what this judge does.
Some people think OJ did it. That's the way the system works. It's sort of like, an umpire in a game. Guess what? We have no instant replay. It's done. Okay, it's called. It's moved on. It's in the books.
You don't want to be on the Saints side of that.
No.
Boom, boom.
Sorry, dear. It's not too soon. It's been a year.
My lady's from New Orleans, so it's a touchy subject.
Yeah, I'd imagine so.
And Scott Crayon here.
Yeah, we deal with it regularly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, it's nice to have clients that listen. So I know that I am very expensive as far as like an hourly rate, and that's purposeful because I do want to fulfill that alpha role. So if people are paying me, my going rate, then I'm pretty certain that they're following my advice because they're paying very, very dearly for it. Mm-hmm. But the idea is, do you want to experience something like rapidly and get where you're supposed to be, or do you want to go through the slow bleed? How many sleepless nights? I look at it, for every case that I have in my office, I've got somebody who doesn't sleep well at night, or at least is not sleeping as well as they could or they should be. All of these uncertainties. So why not move towards certainty?
And to relate it a little bit to our business, I find that the house tends to be a giant item of contention almost every time. Who's going to stay in the house? Who's going to keep the house? Who's going to pay for it? Can we afford it? Right. I mean, it seems to be, it's almost every time, and it's this like one large tangible object that I'm like, guys, just burn it. Get rid of it. If you guys get rid of the house.
It's an emotional attachment that later you find.
Get rid of the house, both of you rent, and it'll be so much easier to come together to an agreement once this big giant thing is out of the way.
I agree. I think if I have a client who wants to acquire the house, the first conversation that I have is say, well, if you're going to acquire the house, you have to pay half of the equity in it. Okay, so let's say there's $500,000 worth of equity in the house. So that means literally you have to borrow or get $250,000 of your own money and give it to your spouse. What happens if in a period of 2 years you say, okay, I bit off more than I can chew, I'm having difficulty in maintaining the house, I need to sell the house. Now you're going to sell the house, you alone are going to pay the cost of sale. Mm-hmm. So you're going to lose that 8% of the full market value of the house, and you're going to pay that all yourself.
Instead of splitting.
Instead of splitting it if you sell it during the marriage. And, there's all sorts of things as far as, kids are resilient. Okay, so you can't confuse the fact that, like they're crying at the time that they're packing and they're leaving the house, but it's just a transition. It's not to be confused with whether or not they're going to be fine.
Finding new friends.
Exactly. So making the play for the house, it's an emotional thing too. Mm-hmm. Plus I have one right now where my client is, I don't want the house, but I don't want him to have the house either. Yeah. because of the emotional memories and things that are associated with
That
it.
kind of makes sense. That's what I'm saying. It feels like to me
Well,
like
I
the
didn't
easiest
move
thing
back.
to get rid of.
I one of the reasons I didn't go back into my house is I just didn't want that being in the middle of basically the negotiations,
Right.
knowing the ex is going, and he's living in our house, and well, no one's living in the house right now. Right now, we're just keeping it alive right now, so we don't lose money on the home, and that was it. And I'm sure it helped because if I was in there, especially if I was in there with like a girlfriend.
Oh yeah, I could see that going over really well.
That would, there'd be little ticking noises in the.
Well, moving on. I mean, it's difficult from either side of it, but most of the litigation is not fueled by legitimate disagreements over the facts. The law is relatively clear. If somebody knows what the law is, you just apply it to the facts, and you can reach a conclusion. What clouds people is, again, that emotion. So if leaving a relationship, there's either an interloper. Okay, so there's an interloper. That person is immediately, looked at very poorly, particularly if there's kids and the kids find out about it. You're the person who, caused my parents to break up in their marriage. Or even if there's a relationship that happens after there's a physical separation, one party may not be okay with it that you moved on so quickly. How could it be that you professed your love for me and promised to love me forever, and now there's somebody else on your arm?
I know nothing
and these
about
are the things for like me as the
Even
lawyer.
Furman's laughing in the back.
Remember
our cameraman Furman's like,
many years ago, Jerry Ryan. I'm looking at the carpet.
Yeah.
Yeah, so these are the things that for the lawyer on my side, I'm like, okay, take a deep breath. This is going to be a problem. It's not a legal issue. It has nothing to do with law, but it could be made a legal issue. It's interesting. People can fight about anything that they want. If you go on the internet, you can easily pull up a picture of this couple going through a divorce, I think in Texas, and there's this big pile of Beanie Babies in the courtroom, and they're on their knees dividing their Beanie Babies in front of the judge. You can fight about anything.
Wow. So we don't forget on a subject that we mentioned earlier, and I want to make sure we touch on it for all of you because it's something that affected me and mine, and if I would have been a little less emotional and smarter about it, it would have helped my particular scenario when I was going through my separation, and that is to be very careful with social media.
Oh, absolutely.
Because it's something that's probably one of the areas where I bit off more than I could chew. Before I consulted you, I just kind of did it, and then you're like, ooh.
Right. Well, sometimes it can be a legal issue. So it's certainly going to be an emotional issue, like flaunting a new relationship or something like that. I'm okay. It's taken very poorly by your spouse. It's hurtful. They view it as being hurt, and that hurt has to play out somewhere. And unfortunately, if they have a lawyer, it may come through the lawyer, who's going to use that as the sword against you. So.
It's like
the better
fuel.
It is.
It's like rocket fuel, right?
Totally
it's like I feel like your fire's dying, and you're like, oh hey.
Well, with my producer, there was not much on my end that I had to really worry about, but then I added fuel.
Right. So here's where it becomes a legal issue. So let's say somebody does step out of the relationship. Okay. So and then let's say you're the spouse who's cheated on, and let's say you find out about it. And then as a response to finding out about it, perhaps you confront either your spouse and or their new love interest. Okay, so now we have a series of text messages. We could have physical confrontations. So you come from the so-called innocent spouse to being the one that's either in jail or on the wrong end of a domestic violence restraining order because you're being unreasonable, threatening, abusive.
Can't help your case.
No. That's where it legally can significantly damage your case.
Again, it all really comes down to emotions. I mean, you'd think that people are going to be adults about things and say, hey, you know what, it's not working. Let's just separate and go on our peaceful ways together. But it's never like that.
No, it's hard. Obviously, it's contrary to human nature. But I'll tell clients, like, if they're still living together, that if something starts moving towards a fight, just don't engage. Don't engage because there's only so long somebody who's not suffering from a personality disorder will continue attacking unless you play along with them.
Right.
So you just try to take the higher ground, and yeah, it can be emotionally difficult, but you find the right outlet for it. You go to a therapist, you go to your friends and family. That's where you go ahead and emote. You protect your kids from it. You don't display it towards your spouse. Keep that out of it and take your feelings privately somewhere, but yeah, process them and go through it. And even though, justice may say and cry out that, they deserve this, you still have to be very careful because it's going to come back and visit you too. And like I said, we often can find the person who's clearly been hurt or injured emotionally, that they're the ones that are doing the worst in court because they can't contain the anger, the upset, the emotions, and the judge is looking at it and saying, oh my goodness, this is an angry person. Perhaps, sir, you need some protection from this person.
Right.
Hey, maybe he's right. I wouldn't want to be with you anyway. You are not demonstrating someone I want to be with.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. And what's nice is, as you listen to Jim, and Jim's been on our show, again, go to donandgino.com, look at our YouTube channel. There's probably 30, 40 videos with Jim. And you speak, as you do this with me the whole time, when you speak to your clients, calm, cool, collective, and direct with what your advice is, just like we try to do with our clients, because they can go online and get a loan, but are they asking the right questions? Right. Do they have experience to go, yeah, it sounds good that you're going to do that, but because you're self-employed, you can't go that direction. Do you really need to put that money down when you have this amount of debt that we can unload instead? And there's so many different angles.
Some, just like everything, there are some people that can go and get the automatic burger order and hit the button and it all comes out and it's going to be right. There's going to be a percentage that works, but there's going to be a percentage that really need a professional. Like you said, you can also, there's also people that are going to be able to separate because they have no assets, they have no kids, they have no nothing. They can sign a piece of paper and that's it.
But they may have beanie babies.
But they may have
beanie babies. Therein lies the fight. So yeah, I just recently mediated a fairly substantial estate. So there wasn't going to be any question that the people were going to have enough money for their lifetimes, and they had children who were no longer minors, but they did want to provide for them. So we came up with a real interesting set of facts. Certain assets go to husband, certain assets go to wife, and certain assets will remain in a family trust that they will make irrevocable so that their intent to maintain the mother and father during their respective lifetimes, from the estate income, the trust income, that the race or the assets in the trust upon the second death will distribute to the kids, or maybe some at the death of the first one. But it's set up that we have all of this money and we have all of these assets, and it's our intent to make sure that it goes to the kids. And the reason they did that is because life moves on. So while neither of them anticipate a significant relationship, we never know. We never know as somebody becomes older and they get involved in yet again another relationship. The pull of the suggestion of the new mate as far as what you should do with your money can be deafening. And you've seen issues of elder abuse where somebody comes in and cons all the money out of people, and this was a device they were able to use to ensure that none of that could happen because it's already gifted.
Right.
You can't get it back.
Well, always great advice, Jim, and thank you for always bringing up new topics, new information for our guests and our listeners, so that basically you know some things to think about. Unfortunately, none of us want to think about divorce or how to handle it, but it's good that if it does come up, you'll get some great advice. I suggest you checking out more of the videos. I guarantee there's some great topics for you. But thank you for bringing up some great information as always, and being such a great professional for us.
Well, thanks.
And
thanks
a good
again.
friend.
Yes.
And plus, his stuff's really funny.
Slightly inappropriate. I actually had one.
But he's real. That's what's cool.
Thought about it. I'm like, nah, maybe not.
They say if you have to think about it like that, it's probably not.
It's probably not.
No. Just say no. So how can they get a hold of you and find out more about you?
Oh, easily. So Jim Reape, my telephone number out here is 661-288-1000. Find us online, Reape Rickett. Google me. We're out there. Our website, Divorce Digest, jam-packed with all sorts of tips and information. In fact, that high-asset case that I just mediated that I talked to you about, the 3 pots with the trust, they hired me because they read my articles on Divorce Digest and said, you know what? None of your articles were a tease. You actually just laid out what the law is and how it applies to certain facts, and you gave real advice. And there was nothing there say, well, no, call me and I'll give you the answer. Right. And it was because of just who I am and the way that I do it. They're like, no, this is the one that I want to go. He just gives away advice.
Yeah, none of us are getting paychecks for doing this, by the way, for the last 9 years. And for that, we thank you for your time. I know how expensive your time is.
Totally. This is how we can get it for free.
Right
for you, though, not for us.
So thank you for your time, though, and thanks you for being a great confidant to not just us, but our listeners, and giving us great advice. So, and thank you for being part of the Don and Gino Show. Again, you can find out more at donandgino.com. We also have the National Real Estate Cafe, which is a daily video blog on what's really happening in the real estate and financial world.
Most importantly, to get these every day, go subscribe to your YouTube channel. You'll get something from Don and Gino that'll be helpful all the time.
All right. Thanks again for being part of our show.